Well, welcome to Disability Connection West Michigan Let's Connect show. Today we're here at a conference at the Muskegon Community College on leadership and leisure. Be the captain of your own ship. And our keynote speaker today is Domonic Corradin, who grew up in Whitehall and went to Whitehall High School. At the age of 16, Domonic had a car accident that left him paralyzed, but that didn't stop him from doing what he loved. He's tried every organized sport there is for athletes with disabilities and has even become involved in some unorganized ones, and I can't wait to hear about what that is, that some people might call extreme. Since 2007, he has went around, traveled the globe or the earth 3 times, stopping in 15 countries, four different continents. He leads by example. He leads by doing. He leads by living his life to the extreme. And I also want to let you know, and I'm sure he'll tell you more about this as well, that I believe he won the Bike Time Sleeve Tattoo Award for last year's Bike Time here in Michigan. So, yeah, right. So please help me introduce Domonic Corradin.
So as she said, my name's Domonic Corradin. I grew up in this area, so I've had a lot of fun and been able to experience a lot of things here. I want you guys all to think for a second, only a split second, and tell me the last time you guys went on a trip or had an adventure. Doesn't matter if it was in your backyard, something fun, something you always dreamed of. And if you can't remember in a split second, it's been too long. All right? Like she said, when I was 16 years old, I was paralyzed in a car accident. I was a varsity soccer goalie for Whitehall High School, and I was in a training session in between seasons, and I had just gotten my license. I was about 3 weeks after my 16th birthday, and it was beginning of December, snow on the roads, always, and on my way home, I lost control on the ice. Coming around a corner, I saw going into the corner was normal, straight, clean roads. Coming out of the corner, it was snow with black ice over it. So, not even knowing what I hit, lost control of the car, the car hit the snow furrow along the side of the road, and it flipped up on its side. I then flew into a tree about 16 feet, and I hit a tree with the roof of the car. Well, with that impact, the roof came down and hit me in the back and shattered 2 vertebrae in my back. The bone chips then they cut into my spinal column and gave me a complete paralysis from about my waist down. I was rushed to Hackley Hospital from there, and then they weren't equipped at that time to deal with spinal cord injuries. So they then sent me to Grand Rapids. Within a couple days, they sent me over to Grand Rapids. I went to Blodgett Memorial, which I believe now is Spectrum Health. And I had surgery on my back. They repaired the damage to my vertebrae, but obviously the spinal damage was permanent. I was then, after a couple more days in an ICU unit, I was transferred to Mary Free Bed, where I spent 6 weeks in rehab, learning how to use a chair, learning how to do daily life things. I was very fortunate because of being young and being athletic that I was able to recover very quickly. The normal stay for a paraplegic with no other injuries was about 3 months. That was about the minimum stay. And I was in and out in about 6 weeks. I got out on a Thursday, went back to school on a Friday for half a day. Monday morning, went back full time. Luckily and unluckily, my injury was actually over Christmas break. So while they're out of session for Christmas and New Year's, I'm in the hospital, doing all my rehab. So as I get back, I didn't miss as much school. So I was able to step right back into it, and I was able to graduate on time with all my friends, everybody that I had grown up with, and And then after that, I left after high school. I went to Arizona. I went to a college out there. Pretty much packed up my car and drove out. And that was sort of the beginning of a very interesting set of years of doing all sorts of insane things. I had played basketball and done road racing for Grand Rapids Wheelchair Sports while I was here in high school. Played for the Junior Pacers, and then when I went out to Arizona, I got signed up with the Phoenix Suns wheelchair basketball team. Played with a professionally sponsored team out there. Played for about 3 years, and then got into, as my normal personality would dictate, I got into pushing the limits a little bit further. When I was first injured in '94, there wasn't a whole lot of adaptive equipment out there. So, you know, the therapists, albeit the incredible job that they had done pushing me to get me back into sports and get me back into activities, there wasn't a whole lot available. So I felt that it was in my best interest to see what sort of things I could trailblaze. So I started, you know, getting out there and doing snow skiing and water skiing, and as time went on, the limit got higher and higher and higher. And over the last couple years, I've been doing some pretty crazy traveling. I backpacked in Europe for about 5 months in 2007, and that started the majority of the travel. I've been to, like Susan said, I've been to 15 different countries on 4 different continents. I've been pretty much all over Europe, a bunch of places in Southeast Asia, a good majority of Australia, and traveled all over in the States. And every time, you know, getting a little bit harder, getting a little, you know, pushing the limits a little bit further. Now here, last year I started skydiving. The year before that, I got my scuba certification. Went down to the Cayman Islands, went diving with a group called the Dive Pirates, and you know, just continued to see what I could do. You know, motorsports has always been in my blood. I started racing motocross before I got injured, so that was always a desire to get back into. And just, you know, what other things I could get myself into. Now it's 16 years plus. And the adaptations, the accessible equipment has grown leaps and bounds, and so now it affords me the opportunity to do these things. And not only that, but do them at a high level. You know, it's no longer the need of someone, you know, in their backyard making something. It's a professional machine shop that's actually designing the equipment. We're getting the advantage of you know, the crossover from cycles and motorcycles and things like that for our equipment. So we get the lighter weight, faster things. So we're able to go out and do more. Which, at that point, that's your biggest thing when you want to go out and be able to venture out is, you know, for us that are in a wheelchair, you have to have a wheelchair that you're comfortable in. You have to, that's your mobility. Whether it's a walker, whether it's a wheelchair, whatever, you know, the better you're fit in it and the better it's equipped, the easier it is to be able to get out and do things. For me, I went and I started with a front suspension on my chair. It was pretty much, as my friend said, it was required if I was going to do cobblestones in the cobblestone sidewalks in Europe and things like that. They said if I didn't have the front suspension that I would probably jar my teeth loose. I said, no, I want to keep my teeth. So we put those on. I put a larger wheel on the front to be able to not stick into the cracks in all the sidewalks. I went to a lighter weight wheel. I went to, for a long time I used a hard rubber tire so that I didn't have to worry about flats. I didn't have to carry a patch kit. I didn't have to carry a pump, any of that kind of stuff. The positioning of your chair, you know, you want to be able to sit very comfortable. Obviously, I'm in my chair pretty much all day long, so it's got to be nice and comfy. You know, you don't want to sit in something that's uncomfortable all day long. So those were the first step. Then it was a matter of learning how to navigate different things. Europe was my first taste, so that one was, you know, my friends, the whole thing started, a lot of my friends that were in chairs that I had played sports with, they all wanted to travel. Oh, I want to go to Europe, I want to go see Rome, I want to see Paris. But wait, it's all old. It's like just castles there, right? All farmland. Well, no, it's not like that, you know. And, you know, my friends have always quoted me as being the more daring one. So I said, all right, well, you know, I'm afforded a great opportunity. A friend of mine helped me out with some travel. So I said, all right, I'm going to go and I'll prove it to you guys that it's not near as bad as what people think. So I went over there and I started writing to some of my friends saying, you know, yeah, this is what I found. I went to Paris. It's not that bad. You know, I went to Munich, I went to London, I went to Rome, I went to all over Switzerland, I went to Salzburg, Austria. And like I was saying, one of the things that you had to learn, the accessibility there is a lot different. You know, here in the United States we have the ADA, so it requires all public buildings to be accessible. There they don't have that. So there's a lot of things that you had to navigate, one of which being curbs in a sidewalk, or a lot of buildings had only one step up into the sidewalk. Well, navigating one step in a wheelchair for majority of people is pretty much impossible, especially without help. And I did a majority of my travel all on my own. So I didn't have, you know, an able-bodied friend there with me to be able to lift me up the step. So I had to figure out how to get up this step on my own. Crashed many, many times. It's quite interesting when you're trying to get into an Irish pub and you fall going into it. You're sober. They're going, I don't get it. And of course the reaction from everyone there is going, oh no, there's a wheelchair on the ground, what do we do? Just let me get into my chair, it's okay, I know how. So after a while I learned to navigate, you know, one step. Well, of course, again, pushing the limits, there are a few places where there'd be 3-4 steps. Okay, now how do we do that? So, you know, willingness to try these things and not scared to fall and scratch myself, figured that out. Going upstairs, downstairs. In fact, even here in the States, just recently I was in Los Angeles for an expo out there, and me and a few of my friends wanted to go to this underground Irish pub that was right there in downtown LA. When you figure Los Angeles, everything's going to be accessible. Well, there's no ramp, there's no elevator, there's no nothing. So it's stairs. Me and my friend Barry, we're both in chairs, we're both adventurous enough. We know how to do stairs. So we went up to the bouncer and we said, okay, are you cool with us doing this? Because it's gonna look crazy. And we might hurt ourselves, but we're not gonna do anything. Bouncers were, okay, yeah, well, you know, we'll see what's going on here. We want to see this. So we navigate down the stairs, which for us is basically backing up to the stairs, and you lean forward and you let your rear wheels go down first, and you hold onto the railing to control your speed. You don't want to go down too fast. So here we are going down a full flight of stairs down into this underground pub. We go down, we have a few drinks, we have a few laughs, have fun with our friends. It's closing time and we're ready to go. Going, oh, this is going to be interesting. Because going down is the easy part. Going up, a lot more difficult. And all of our friends are not in good shape to carry us. Well, the owner comes out of the back room and he says, guys, he goes, we have a service elevator right in the back here. Oh, that could have been nice to use when we were going down. So we go to the service elevator. Well, it's one of those elevators that when it comes up out of the sidewalk. And I don't know if you've ever seen in like New York City or anything like that. As it comes up out of the sidewalk, 2 big metal flaps open. Well, we're having fun and we pop up out of the sidewalk and it's, look at us, we're awesome. We're coming out of the sidewalk. Gotta have fun. So the point of the story is that, I mean, you're going to find these things everywhere. The biggest thing that I found with travel was no matter where you're at, outside of the States, the mentality of the business owners, the mentality of the people around there is to be as helpful as possible because they understand we're not accessible. Yeah, I went to Amsterdam, and the hotel that me and my girlfriend were to stay at was 700 years old. They're like, we're really sorry, we can't make this accessible. There's just no way. Well, it was a half a flight of stairs up into the main level of this hotel. And it was kind of set up like a bed and breakfast. It was in a plaza along in the main part of Amsterdam. Well, she goes up and she talks to the front desk man and says, you know, hey, my boyfriend's in a wheelchair. He can't come up, you know, can you guys go outside and we'll talk about what we can do? So they come out, the hotel manager and the front desk manager come out. And I said, look guys, you know, I'm totally cool with figuring out what we can do. I need a place to crash, it's 12 o'clock at night, I've got a flat tire, I've been on a train for 14 hours, I just want sleep. So he says, well, you know, he points at a fire escape and he says, well, your room is in the basement, it's right down this fire escape. I said, well, if you guys are not, you know, against it, I have no problem getting out of my wheelchair and climbing down the stairs. Or if you guys are interested, you know, can you grab the front and back of my chair and carry me down the steps? Oh yeah, not a problem, not a problem. So they help us down, they help me down the stairs. My hotel, the room door was right there at the base of the stairs, like you'd said. So we get down there, get in the door. My chair's nice and skinny, so I can fit in a lot of places that a majority of people can't. Go in, it's completely accessible for me, the room is totally good. As the managers are leaving the room, the hotel manager turns around and he says, continental breakfast is included in the price of the room. He says, but it's upstairs on the main floor. He says, how about this? He says, 9 o'clock in the morning, he says, we'll bring down a couple platters of food, just an assortment of what we've got upstairs. You guys pick off what you want, and we'll go from there. Wow, that's really awesome. Thank you, you know. 9 o'clock in the morning, there's a light knock on our door. We open the door, and there's 2 platters of amazing food on our floor. Wow. Wow, this is excellent. You know, and that was one of the biggest experiences for me, you know, in the United States, because there's the rules of the ADA, a lot of businesses will fight it. It's like a little kid when a parent tells them you have to eat your Brussels sprouts, they're not going to do it just because somebody said you had to. No, don't tell me I have to. So a lot of businesses kind of adopted the same sort of personality. So they fight it. Whereas in Europe and in Asia and a lot of these places, they're very customer service oriented. They're very, very helpful and they're very, very accommodating. So they're in the position to go, yeah, we want your business, so we'll do whatever it takes. You know, they'll help you upstairs. They'll move tables around. I've had bouncers hurl me upstairs to get into a club. That was an interesting night. But you know, there's all sorts of people out there that are willing to do whatever it takes to help you out. You know, everybody's disability is different. Everybody's accommodations are different. Mine are different from someone with the same exact injury as mine. All of our experiences dictate that. So you venturing out, you first have to have the willingness to do it. You have the desire to do it. You have to have an open mind, because you're going to encounter a lot of things. You're going to encounter a lot of small problems. You're going to encounter a lot of roadblocks. You have to have the willingness to persevere through it. You want to do those things. And it all depends on how bad you want to do it. Some of my friends have said, you know what, I'm fine never leaving Muskegon. That's great. That's awesome. And I will never, ever deny that person that. But if someone says, oh, I want to go to Australia. That's a big one I get. I've been to Australia now 5 times. I want to go to Australia, but it's so expensive. Well, yeah, if you go in high season, yeah, you can find a ticket for probably $1,600. But if you go in low season, you can spend about $500. You play around a little bit with the internet. You play around. Tourism is such a we need your business right now environment. You know, the airlines, they jack the prices up so much on fuel and on their airline tickets. Now, people didn't want to travel. So now they're going, we want you back. Please come back. We'll make it really, really cheap. So if you look around, you can find very, very cheap travel. If you're willing to have a flexible schedule, things like that. So, people are their own roadblock in a majority of times. Your fear or your excuses that you want to make. If you can make any excuse not to do anything you want. But it's saying, you know what, yeah, I'll figure that out. One way or another, I want to do that bad enough, I'm going to do it. I'm going to figure out what it takes. If I have to build something before I leave, if I have to have a friend build something for me, if I have to go to the gym and strengthen myself up so that I'm able to do these long walks, or whatever it may be. Everyone is their own roadblock. So, and it doesn't matter if you have a disability or not. Any one of us, any able-bodied person will look at me and they'll go, oh my goodness, I have use of my legs and I don't do half the things you do. Well, why not? Do you want to? Then do it. And I always tell them. And the wheelchair gives me kind of a nice little, little kind of dagger in their back to go, oh, I can't use my legs. What's your excuse? So, I mean, it's one of those things where you're able to do anything you really want. When it comes to the sporting stuff, like I said, I started out playing organized sports. I started out with road racing. I went to basketball. I did tennis. Right now, I do competitive hand cycling, where I have a hand crank bike. I started out, my first race was actually the Riverbank Run last year. I did a 25K. Then I stepped up to a marathon. Now I'm looking at more extreme rides. I just looked at Challenge Athletes Foundation gave me a grant to be able to afford my hand cycle. They sent me an email saying that they're doing double century rides. Well, double century is 200 miles over 3 days. So you get on your bike and you ride about 75 miles a day, 80 miles a day. There's a race up in Alaska called the Alaska Challenge. It's 267 miles over 6 days. You ride from Fairbanks to Anchorage along the Parks Highway. It's one of the most beautiful rides I've ever seen. Apparently, people have gotten some really bad weather with it lately, but still, there's those things out there. If you want to do it, there's somebody who's probably done it, and if not, you're able to trailblaze. You're able to go out and do these things on your own. I've done, like I said, I've done skydiving. I did my first couple tandem jumps last year. There are organizations and drop zones all over the nation, all over the world, that they may not promote that they deal with people with disabilities, but they do. It's your willingness to go up and say, you know what, I want to do this, let's figure it out. And that's a big thing too. You as an individual, when you go someplace, if you're nasty to the people that are behind the counter, they're going to be nasty back. If you're nice to people, if you have a smile on your face, they're going to return that. And they're going to be a lot more accommodating than if someone was demanding or nasty. So your attitude dictates your trip in so many other ways. So for me, my friends, I've had so many experiences where I've gone someplace and I've said, oh, I had a wonderful time at this, this hotel. And a friend of mine would say, well, I thought they were all jerks. I had a horrible time. And you kind of step back and you look and you go, well, you're a jerk to begin with. So, yeah, they're going to be a jerk back. So, when you meet people, it's a good thing to have a smile on your face and to joke and to be willing to try different things, because you're going to get a whole lot further. When it comes to, scuba diving, I went with a group called the Dive Pirates down to the Cayman Islands. And we had, there was 28 people with disabilities with a crew of entire people with disabilities and helpers, family, friends, all of that. There was about 60 people. Well, we all met up in Houston, and we gathered the group, and then we all flew from Houston to Grand Cayman, the main island. That's the big touristy island. Excuse me. Very accessible, very easy to get around. But when you show up with 28 people in chairs and prosthetic limbs, they kind of go, I don't know what to do here. So, but luckily, this was like the 4th or 5th time that this organization had done this trip. They do it yearly. So when we got there, they had the crew, the aisle chairs, everything to get us from the plane on Grand Cayman to our plane to get us to Cayman Brac, which was the island that we were going to be spending about 8 days on. So they orchestrated this thing in the most beautiful way I've ever seen. And I would have thought, it's the Bahamas, you know, it's the Caribbean, it's going to be all laid back and almost like third world. How are they going to get all of these people in chairs from plane to plane? And they did it in the most amazing way. I was completely shocked. I thought, this is awesome, you know, and if they can do it, why can't everybody else? So we get everybody over to the next plane. We get to the last hotel, or the last airport on the trip, and they had flatbed trailers and vans and everything else to get all of our luggage, all of our chairs, everything to the hotel. It was one of the most brilliant trips I've ever seen. And it was orchestrated by just a handful of people, you know? And they had that attitude to say, you know what, we want to make sure this experience is great for everybody, so we're going to do everything that we can to help them out. It was brilliant, and I find it more and more every day. So there's, you know, scuba diving, skydiving. I went to the Richard Petty Driving School, and they did a ride-along. You know, hopped in the passenger side of a NASCAR race car and did 160 miles an hour around a track. If you want to do it, it's out there. In February, I was skiing in Montana. I went up to Big Sky, and I spent a week with the Wounded Warrior Project. Went snow skiing with them, dog sledding, you name it. Snowmobiling, water skiing, any sport that you can think of that you might have wanted to do. If you had a disability all your life, you know, there's a little different mentality than someone who, like myself, I spent half my life able-bodied and then had to deal with a transition. Some people, my friends, are, you know, they were born with their disability, spina bifida, cerebral palsy, things like that. So that's all they knew. My friend Christina, she's a paraplegic like me, but she was injured in a car accident when she was 10 months old. She knows nothing other than being in a wheelchair. So, you know, her mentality is more of that I've had it all my life. So, you know, for me, there were a lot of things that I did when before my injury, when I was still, quote unquote, able-bodied. And that was a big thing in my head to go, oh, well, how am I going to do it now? But just that question, just having that question makes it possible for you to do it. Because if you wonder, you're going to look it out. You're going to search out the adaptations. You're going to search out the ways to do it. You're going to figure it out in your head. Trial and error, whatever it may take. So those things make it able to happen. The adaptations now, like I said, you know, we've advanced so much in the last 10 years. If there's anything, again, if there's anything out there, go out and do it. You know, there's really no excuses, unless you want to make them. And if you make them, then they're there. You know, one of the cool things that I found adaptation-wise was I was in Interlaken, Switzerland. And Interlaken, Switzerland is known as one of the sort of extreme sports meccas of Europe. And we had gone there, and sitting at the hotel, there's a big field in front of the hotel that we were staying at. And paragliders are coming in. All sorts of people coming in, parachutes, and they've got a big fan strapped to their back. Wow, okay, that's interesting. What we wanted to do is, me and my friends wanted to go up to what was called the Jungfrau Joch, which is the highest point in the Swiss Alps. It's the highest point in all of Europe. It's, I think, about 11,000 feet, a little bit over 11,000 feet. So my friend says, well, yeah, we can get up there, but it's a series of trains. Okay, trains are cool, I can do trains. No, you don't understand. These are crazy trains. Okay, I'm still thinking it's cool. we get there, and we have to change 3 different trains to make it all the way up the mountain. First transition, I'm going, all right, I'm a little bit nervous here. These trains are a little high. I could make that jump, but it's going to look ugly on the bottom. And all of a sudden, this forklift comes up, and it has an aluminum ramp with railings on the sides and 2 fold-up ramps. God, what is this thing? And the guy gets out of the forklift, he grabs a pin out of the lock, folds the ramp down, has me roll up onto the platform, he folds the ramp back up, and drives me to the next plane, or the next train. Going, this is awesome. He flips down the other ramp when we get to the next train. I roll off onto the next train. Off we go. What was that about backcountry and old and everything's all rural and they're not going to be advanced? This is awesome. This is way better than anything I've found in the States. Okay, cool. We go up and get all the way to the top, and when you're sitting at 11,000 feet, you're up above the frost layer. All you see is glaciers. It's all white, all mountains. And it is one of the most beautiful things. And to me, that was, it made me step back because, you know, if there wasn't those adaptations, I would never be able to see that stuff. You know, when I was first injured, when I first moved down to Arizona, I bought myself a Jeep Wrangler. I want to go off-roading. I had been driving before. I got my license back, you know, fairly early. So, you know, I was able to drive pretty much any vehicle. I had the hand controls. I had all the setup. So I get my Jeep and I tell my friends, I'm going to go off-roading. And I go out and I start going through the trails and things like that. And I joined a Jeep club. And the first trip we did, I had taken my chair and I took the back seat out of my Jeep. And I took my chair and I picked it up whole and I put it in the back area where that back seat was. And I strapped my chair down because I figured, well, if I roll over, that chair is going. So strapped it all down, nice and secure, and I'm going along the trail. Well, there's certain obstacles that you get to where pretty much everybody stops in a line. And if you can, you get out of your vehicle and you walk up front and you see who's taking that obstacle, how they're doing, you know, if they need help, whatever. Well, I stayed in my truck. There's no way I'm getting my chair up and trying to roll through this. So I'm sitting there, people are walking by, and they look, I've got my legs crossed right against my seat, and I've got my hand controls. Everybody's looking, they're going, what is that? They just kind of stare for a second, they continue on. They're like, we want to see this guy roll over. We want to see who's going to crash. So they go on. They kind of notice my chair. A couple people make comments about, oh, is that a camera chair? Are you a photographer? No. See the wheels? Yes. I don't get it. How are you out here? These. So we go along. We go through the whole entire trail. And I got to see the most amazing parts of this canyon that would have never been accessible to me, that I thought was never accessible to me. We were going through sections that there was actually old amethyst mines. I picked up a raw chunk of amethyst right off the trail. You know, the experience was incredible. And those adaptations, that little bit of hand control was able to get me out there and do that. Something so simple, something so easy. Well, then after the trip, the president of the club, who I had ended up befriending on the trip, he sends out a mass email. And it was one of those moments when he got to stick the dagger in everyone. We had about, at that time, I think about 1,500 members. And so this mass email goes out to everyone. And he brought me up in this email, just recapping the trip. And he says, for all you people out there that make excuses, oh, I can't go wheeling today. I can't go do this. I can't go do that. I've got to, you know, mow the lawn. I've got to do whatever. They make their excuses. He says, this guy stopped making excuses. He just did it. He went out there. He made it happen. He says, so everyone who has excuses, he says, what's your excuse now? This guy can't use his legs, and he's out there doing it. So that's the biggest thing. It's back up here. You know, it's not, my legs aren't my disability in any way, shape, or form. I've got an adaptation now that gets me around faster than anybody else. My friends all tell me to slow down. When we're walking down the sidewalk, I'm gone.
But he's the handicapped guy. How is he going so fast?
Tables have turned now, huh? So, again, it's your head. So I want every single one of you, I want you to go home today, and I want you to write that quote-unquote bucket list. I want you to write down those desires. I want you to make a checklist. And I don't care how big or small it is. I don't care if it's going in your backyard and sitting in a hammock for all day. If that's what you want to do, go out and do it. And when you write that bucket list, you better go out and start checking those things off. Don't just let that bucket list build. And don't put it off for another day. Because for me, I was given a second chance. I had a traumatic accident and was able to be given a second chance to do the things that I wanted. Those things that I put off. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Well, sometimes you don't get that tomorrow. Sometimes you don't get that second chance for whatever reason. You know, some of the skydiving trips, some of the different trips that I've taken, they were a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And if I didn't jump at that, then I sit back and I go, oh man, I really missed out. And my friends are all coming back from the trip. Oh man, you wouldn't have believed what we saw. Wouldn't have believed what we did. Oh, that was crazy. You remember when Joey jumped off that bridge? No, I wasn't there. So, again, those things that you want to do, go out and do them. And don't let anybody else tell you that you can't. If you want to do it, there's an adaptation for something, for everything.
We've got time for about 3 questions. If anybody has some questions that they would like to ask him. In the meantime, start filling out your evaluation if you haven't. So do we have any pressing questions from the audience? We've got a question here, yes?
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm from Montague, Michigan.
Uh-huh.
What was your problem after you had your accident, and how did you change your mind not to be sad and angered with your disability, and how long did it take you to cope with your problems?
For me, it was about 2 weeks laying in a hospital bed, and of course everyone came into my room and into my hospital room when I'm sitting in a rehab unit, and they all wanted to say, oh, well, everything happens for a reason. And I'm laying in a bed and I'm thinking, this is punishment. I'm a soccer player and I just got my legs taken away. How, what's the reason for this? And I spent about 2 weeks asking why, and it kept rolling around in my head. And I wasn't doing my therapy, I was just sitting in my room. And then all of a sudden, it was like a light switch. And I went, you know what? Why is not getting me any better? Why is not getting me out of the hospital? So, all right, let's see what kind of stuff we can do here. So I jumped into my therapy, and I, just did whatever I could. I got out fast. To this point, I'm almost 17 years post. And, you still have your bad days. Still have your problems, just wore down, whatever the reason. But I think for me, it was having that athlete mentality. It's sort of fight or flight. It's kind of like a soldier's mentality. It's black or white. It's one way or another. Either we're going to do this or we're not. So for me, it was push ahead, And I wanted to regain as much of a quote-unquote normal life that I had before. I wanted to see how much I could get back again. So I really pushed for that.